What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Scratch Agency Podcast. This is by Scratch Agents for Scratch Agents. My name is Stephen Turnbull, founder of T5 Insurance Services, Clinton, New York, and I'm joined by my co-host today, the one and only, you already know, hold your applause, Mr. Sean Fitzgerald from Sound Harbor Insurance in Long Island, New York. How are those leads over there, Mr. Fitzgerald? Pouring out of your ears. I can see them from here.
Leads are flowing. We got Google ad leads, purchase leads, meta
Good
leads,
stuff.
referrals. We got a lot of good stuff flowing.
I know we're going to do a follow-up on that because I think last week, if I have my math correct, was when we did the episode of just of you diving from Google
Yeah.
to Meta, and there's been some stuff we've talked about off air that we want to follow up on and go over. So we'll definitely do a part 2 on that. But today is about acquisitions, and I'm super excited. One of my favorite people in the industry is joining us today, Mr. Josh Dott, who is the owner of Dott Insurance Group. He was on almost 2 years ago, which is crazy. We've been doing this thing for 2 years, back on episode 23. I would encourage you to go back and listen to episode 23. The quality's probably a little worse, so we've come a long way with that, maybe, Sean. But go back and learn about Josh's story because we're going to dive right into the topic that we want to today about acquisitions. So, Mr. Dott, thank you for joining us today. Welcome back to the Scratch Agency Podcast. How are you?
Good. I'm great, man. Thanks for having me back on. Excited to see what you guys are building. It's crazy. It's been 2 years.
Well, you've been a huge part of the support, and we greatly appreciate that. And you were at the meetup in DC. It was great to spend some time with you, meet your wife, which was fantastic. It was great to see you there. We want to talk about acquisitions, and we talked a little before we started of how we want to take this, but give us just like a 60-second elevator ride of Josh Dott so people can get a little understanding of where you're coming from, what your agency looks like today, and then we'll dive into the topic.
Yeah, I started as a scratch agent 2011. Graduated from a corporate program in 2014. Went independent from a nationwide as an exclusive agent in 2020. And now we've been running as an independent agency for a little over 5 years. It's crazy how fast time goes, but have done a few acquisitions and continuing to build on that and focus on that and organic growth. And just excited to be in front of you guys.
So just for the listeners, I just want to try to set the stage. Define, if you will, what is a few acquisitions?
I've done with my partner group 6 acquisitions in the past 2 years, and prior to affiliating with the Levitt Group, I did I believe 4 on my own. So about 10 total in the past call it 8 years.
That's fantastic. So you're the guy we want to talk to, which is why we're having you on. So 10 acquisitions, 6 in the last 2 years, which is crazy. And so how Sean and I wanted to draw this out, Josh, if you will, is if I'm a scratch agent and I get an opportunity to have an acquisition, and I know we wanted to get into the difference of going after an acquisition versus one coming, right? Because we've talked about that in the past. Regardless of that, what is step one? And I want to try to boil this down as simple as possible because you and I have talked, we've talked a lot about this. I've had some opportunities in the past that I've picked your brain about, and you can talk to 10 different people and you're going to get 10 different answers of what to do, how to approach it and all of that. But with your experience of 10 acquisitions, what is like step 1, 2, 3, 4? And then if we could just kind of go through that chain, I think that'd be very helpful to the listeners.
I think step one is just determining where you want to go as an agency and are you ready for an acquisition? A lot of people think they're ready, but unfortunately they're not. You got to make sure that your home and your agency now is capable of an acquisition. You guys have the foundation and that you can keep, servicing those customers and not really missing a beat. So I think that is making sure, your current house is in order. That's the main thing that I would recommend because it's hard to bring on another agency if your current affairs really aren't ready for that. So I would say just know your numbers, your agency's numbers before you even start to think that, because there's always variables in any deal that you got to be ready for. If the deal isn't as good as you think it is, you got to have the financial the financial strength and also the system strengths to be able to fix that in case it doesn't go well. So I guess just being ready for that.
I think if I can dive in deeper, we talk a lot, Sean, about the foundation from day one, even if it's just you, and documenting the process and procedures, the Loom videos, everything that we do. And I think, Josh, you bring up an incredible point as step one, because a one-man show could get an acquisition that could change their entire agency, and they could pull it off successfully, but you have to have those things in place. So even if you don't have team members at the time, build out these processes and procedures like you do, so that if something like this falls in your lap, you have to act on it quick. You can pivot and move that from the one-man show to a 5-person team or whatever that acquisition brings you to. It's still possible as long as you have that set up. So I think that's a wake-up call and a great realization.
Yeah, I think that was what I was super impressed about, just with the community that you guys are building, because you guys are going to be ready. You guys are starting with that solid foundation. So that's huge. Is it's hard to grow something bigger than yourself or bigger than your agency if you're not ready. And I think some people, think they're ready, but unfortunately, it's a lot harder than just, acquiring a book of business. There's just a lot of relationship building that goes into it, systems, processes, and just, legal, accounting. I mean, there's just so much that goes into, just one deal, that I think young owners just have to realize, what, are they ready for it? And B, can they afford to keep going on if the deal doesn't go quite planned as they want to? Because it is a risk.
Yeah. Yeah. And you mentioned, Josh, what I think was a great point, and it'll help you in an acquisition or without acquisitions, is like knowing where you want to go. I think that was like the first thing you said, right?
Yeah,
Like
I
knowing
mean,
where you want to go as an agency. Because think about it, like if I'm by myself and I have an opportunity to acquire somebody, why potentially would that person want to let me acquire them? Like, what's the value I'm bringing them?
yeah, I mean,
So I feel like you have to have that laid out, I would imagine.
it's so important when you start to prospect and you start to talk to agency owners, is tell them your story, tell them your history, tell them where you want to go, and that's a huge, they need to trust you, and they need to believe in not only what you're building, but also what you've
Yeah.
done in the past. So I think a lot of people don't realize how much the reputation matters when you're going after acquisitions. Because they're gonna talk amongst their peers, they're gonna talk to carrier reps, and that is the most important thing in my mind, is your reputation. So you always got to think long term in this business. The minute you start to just think short term, it can blow up in your face.
Makes sense. So step one, be ready financially, know your vision, have your house in order. Those are a few things, but basically we can lump that into
Yeah, I
step
mean,
one. Now,
yeah, I mean,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, I mean, it's just like when you get ready to buy a house, it's very hard to pull a trigger on a house as soon as one becomes available if you haven't been preparing for it.
Great point.
But yeah, I mean, if you've been preparing for it for the past 6 months to a year, you're meeting with local lenders or national lenders, you're meeting with your CPA, you're meeting with your legal team, you never know when the right opportunity is going to come on your lap, and you got to be ready for it, and get, start
Love that.
preparing now if that's in your mind.
Treat it like buying a house. I love that.
Yeah.
So what would step two be? Let's say, Steven's ready to sell his agency, and
Absolutely. What you want to say, Sean?
and someone reaches out to you, Josh, and says, hey, you should, get in touch with Steven. I was just talking to him. I think he wants to sell. He's in your state, whatever the case is. What's kind of your approach?
Just, if someone reaches out to you, just have an honest conversation with them and just see what are their goals before you even go down that path. You don't want to waste their time, and you don't want to waste your own time, especially, when you're building a business and every time matters. Just having open, honest conversation with the person that's reached out to you. And before you even before you even go down that, route, what are their carriers? Do their carriers mix well with you? What are geographically, where are they located? What's their staff? Do you have a support system for their staff? Or is your staff ready? I mean, there's just a lot of pre-planning that needs to go on even before that first meeting, just to make sure, does it make sense to go down that route?
Would it be fair to say, and I guess like step one is kind of the obvious, right? So if we put step two as like the first step of an opportunities in front of us, I'm looking at it as like step one is just like, hey, get ready if this is something you want to do, right? And when you're looking at step two, would it be fair to say that for you and your experience, that's just a simple conversation?
Yeah, it's just having a human conversation with someone, getting to know them. I mean, you got to trust them and they got to trust you. A lot of times in the first meeting, we're not even talking numbers. I want to know about your staff. I want to know about you as a person, your agency. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Where do you see yourself in 3 years? I mean, all of that stuff matters before numbers. I mean, at the end of the day, they're going to get a lot of the same numbers out there. Everyone kind of knows the revenue multipliers, the EBITDA multipliers, but at the end of the day, there's got to be a trust factor. Do they like you as a person? Do they like your culture? Do they like where your agency's going? And do you like them? I mean, it's got to be a two-way street because, everybody's friends before a deal's done. But when the deal's done and, 2-3 weeks later, that's really when you need to have that relationship with that person because, when the deal's done, that's just when it gets started. So it's very important to get to know both sides.
I wasn't going to share anything, but I'm just going to share a little something because I feel like it would provide good value. Get the smile off your face, Sean. So I'm in the middle of working potentially on a deal, and it came to me, and Josh has been a huge resource. And what you said right there of just having a conversation, I went out to the agency owner that I was talking with, and we had a simple conversation, and I got 90% of the answers to my questions by just saying, what do you want this to look like? And shutting up and letting them talk.
Mm.
Because in so many different situations, it can be, I'm done with this business. I want out. I'm out. Or I need help in this regard. I want to stand for this and that. And to your point, Josh, you can find so much information by just saying, what do you want this to look like? And then shutting the hell up.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, most people only have one chance to do this. It's their biggest asset. So if you really want to get a deal done effectively for both sides, you have to take their input and you got to structure a deal that makes sense for them. You got to take yourself out of the equation and put yourself in their shoes a lot of times. And how do you want to be treated pre-close, post-close, and what matters to you? A lot of times it's not the money. I mean, are you going to have a competitive offer? Yeah. But, are they also going to trust you to make sure that what you tell them is true? And that's when it just goes back to reputation.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So step 2, have an honest, just real conversation with them, get to know them better as humans, and ask just a lot of questions about their agency and listen. What would the third step be? So let's say step 2, they tell you everything. 90% of the carriers align. You start thinking, oh my God, my profit sharing is going to go through the roof if this happens. And, everyone's going to work well together. What's that next step look like? Or do you have to start obtaining like carrier reports or commission statements, things of that? What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would do 2 things. First of all, first thing you would definitely want to get carrier reports. You want to get tax returns, definitely a list of their employees, get a list of their expenses, their P&L. All that stuff matters. You want to do that at one side, but you also, if you haven't already done what I call like meeting with the lenders or meeting with your attorneys, you also got to do that simultaneously. Because if this is your first transaction, the last thing you want to do is make a promise you can't keep. So if you're meeting with an owner and, the numbers sound great and you looked at their financials, but you come 2-3 weeks later, you meet with lenders and, you can't get a loan or you can't get the financial backings. That's, you've wasted your time and you've also wasted the seller's time. So I would say if it seems like it's going in the right direction and you think the deal might get done, if you haven't already kind of got pre-underwritten your own agency to get a loan, you got to do that like yesterday.
Makes sense.
Talk to me about in step 3 that we're on, about the balance of getting as much information that you want and need and overwhelming the potential seller.
Yeah, I think you don't want to overwhelm the seller. So that's why I would just shoot off with a short checklist of stuff that can give you a really good understanding of the business. Basic financials, basic carrier reports, employees, and then that'll give you enough information to at least prepare an offer so they don't already get deal fatigue before it already started. But whenever you make an offer, you got to let them know that, we're both assuming a lot of information right now that we're in good faith going to work towards closing this transaction, but there's going to be some more in-depth information that's going to need to be shared if we move towards that next step.
And I want to ask this question and have you answer it in the sense of people have no idea what either of these things are. Break down for us the difference of an NDA and an LOI in this case, what they are, how they're used, and what you can do to structure each of them.
Yeah, non-disclosure agreement just protects both sides, so that the information they give you, that you can't share that outside the scope of who's right to see it, and vice versa. And they really can't go out there and tell them that they're talking to you as a buyer or seller. So it just protects both parties to know that, the information it's confidential, it's not going to be shared. Next stage would be once you meet with that owner and you go over their financials and you're ready to make an offer, what you call a letter of intent. You're making an offer, letting them know that based off of what we've researched so far, that this is what we're willing to pay. And you outline the terms, when you like to close, examples like that. That's the
Josh,
difference.
sorry, with the NDA, when would you bring that into the process before you ask for those carrier reports and stuff? Or
I always offer it definitely before the carrier reports, but I even offer it, just before our initial conversation, because, insurance,
Gotcha.
it's a big community, it's a big community, but it's also a small community. And
Yeah.
a lot of people don't want their staff to find out.
For
They
sure.
don't want, carriers to find out. So it's really, once again, don't make it about yourself. Ask the seller, would you like to share an NDA now or later in the process? But either way, it protects both parties.
And then the LOI you would do after you got the reports, and you could create some sort of formal offer that the seller understands that the offer might change depending on the actual reports you receive.
Yeah, I
over
mean,
time.
normally you don't really want that offer to change because it's just not really
Okay.
right to do with the seller. Because, it's just a bad taste in their mouth. You make one
Yeah.
offer, you get them under contract and you just start chopping off. It's just not really the right thing to do. So 9 times out of 10, the offer that we make is going to stick through due diligence. And,
So those reports are important.
Yeah, they're everything. Because the last thing you want to do is, if someone's serious about selling it and you give them a half-ass letter of intent offer, they stop talking to other people, other competition to you, and you're just kind of locking them up for no reason. You can't do that.
Yeah.
So, and that's how you're going to ruin your reputation, because word's going to get out that you're just throwing out letter of intents and they're not closing.
Gotcha. Because I would imagine, so out of those reports you mentioned, I would imagine the tax return and the carrier production reports would probably be like the most important, because those are actually like official documents that can't really be
Yeah, and I
finessed.
love to know that, and the staff too, because a lot of people don't understand. The best deals are obviously, financially can be incentive, but also the people that you're getting, the employees. I've got some of my best employees through acquisitions. So it's not, this isn't just a numbers game either. It's, are you getting talent in your organization that can help you grow? So I don't know how you can make it, every offer. I love to at least get a list of, or at least, of a general understanding of their employees too.
Makes sense.
Josh, would you walk us through in as much detail as you're comfortable sharing of some of the acquisitions and kind of how they looked like? Because I've shared this on the show before. In 3 years in business, I've had 4 LOIs, and I haven't got them mainly because of financing. To your point, was only in the business for a year, whatever, and offer came to me, got my hat in the ring, and it didn't work out, whatever. But I always share this, that I learned so much along the way, which is what I want to try to bring the value to the people that are listening to this. Like, can you just break down like a few deals that come to top of mind of like maybe things that were unique? And because between the conversations with you and I and the experiences that I've had, every single one is different. Every seller is going to want something different. Every buyer is going to be able to offer something different. Every staff's different. Carrier, what you name it, they're all different. It's just how do you come together and make it work for both sides? So, would you mind just sharing kind of some success stories, or maybe even failures where you look back and like, man, if I did this differently, or if the seller positioned this differently, it would have gone a different way?
I think every deal is just so different, like you said, and the way you most likely just get deals done is just asking what is motivating the seller to sell, and what is their goal in selling. Do they want to stay in the industry and just don't like being an agency owner? do they just want to focus on producing and tying your organization and use your resources to grow quicker? Or do they just want to retire and just be done? So I just think it's just going back to just having a conversation. I think sometimes people just assume that people just want to sell and be done, or they just want to sell and slow down. And that's the last thing, a lot of times people want. They want to be, that's why I made the move that I made. I wanted to be be part of something bigger than myself a lot of times. So and a lot of people want to guess at, I was 38. Why did you do what you did? Well, that's why. And the group that I partnered with was very instrumental in asking me, what did I want? Where do I see myself in 5 years? Where do I see myself in 10 years? And I think that's the most important thing is just having like a fact finder, because the last thing you can do is assume something in a deal, or assume a seller just wants to do something, or assume one of their employees wants to do something. And it's just asking the right questions to get it done. I think in the past, when I was prospecting, I might assume one person wanted to retire that didn't, or you might want to assume that somebody wanted to be an agency owner that didn't. One of my top guys that he's doing an amazing job selling commercial. He was in my program, and he's partnered with my agency, and now he's my top commercial producer, just absolutely doing an amazing job. For him, he didn't want to really own anymore. But for me, I just knew how good of a person he was, and I saw the drive in him, and he was just a friend of mine, and he's just doing an incredible job. So I just think that's an example of, a young person that wanted to take a step back from owning, but saw the long-term vision of what he wanted to do and where he saw his career going. And it's just great. It works for both sides. But then you're going to get some people that are nearing, the retirement age that just want to retire, and they just want to know that, the closing is going to be efficient, that they're going to get paid on time, and then that you're going to take care of their people. So it's just not assuming stuff. It's just asking the right questions and listening.
Yeah.
I want to just highlight really quick, Sean. I just want to repeat two things that you said that I think are gold there. Two questions. What's motivating you, and what's your goal? That is gold. What's motivating you to consider this, and what's your goal in doing this? I think those two questions are incredible. Sorry, Sean.
Yeah, and I would imagine, and that's that step 2. That's where you knock that out. When you meet with them, you just find out what are they trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I think too many people, just like I said, just focus on the numbers. And quite frankly, a lot of agency owners that end up selling, they're making a great living. They're still growing. So it's not all about the numbers. It's about culture. It's about where they want to go. It's about the resources, their people. And I don't think enough's talked about when sellers decide to sell, that how much their employees matter to them. They matter so much to small business owners that I think if you're not asking the right questions of, where do your employees want to be? Do they want to stay? Where do they see themselves in their career? I think that can differentiate too, rather than just, what do you want? How long do you want to work? It's actually tying in the people that have helped build their business.
Josh, I got to ask you, only because I think it will bring a lot of value to the people listening as well. So you purchased 10 agencies, since you went down this acquisition journey. How many did you have to talk to for that to happen? Like, how many deals roughly did you have? 50 and you got 10 of them? Just ballpark.
That's an amazing question. I mean, I would say tens and tens, 30, 40, 50. I mean, it's just always just, getting out in the community, just having conversations. And I hate to say it, it's like going back to a house. Like it's like when a realtor is prospecting, chances are if you're door knocking in a neighborhood, that person isn't ready to sell. Yeah. But 5, 10 years, or maybe 3 years down the road, when they're ready to sell, you hope they think of you. And that is my biggest, I think success has been just staying in front of people and letting them know you're looking to grow and telling your story. And your story is not going to be for everybody, and that's okay. Your model is not going to be for everybody, but nothing can be really like hurt by just having a conversation and just,
Josh,
Yep.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good.
No, I wanted you to share the story on your most recent acquisition. about the prospecting and how that works.
Yeah, an amazing guy. Just we were talking. I mean, I reached out to him probably 9 years ago and just kept in contact. Maybe
That's
twice a
amazing.
year, once a year, and just checking in. How are you doing? And where do you see your business going? And not being pushy. Don't have sellers, buyer's breath, or just when you sell, and that's just comes off bad. Just like I said, just treating them like adults and just checking in. How you doing? Not when you're looking to retire. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what 30 other people are probably doing down the road.
Yeah, T5, that reminds me of somebody we know very well that has a last name that rhymes with Fung. Brett Young. Okay, I'll just say it, Brett Young.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, really good
You
dude.
got it. Yeah. You can have me all day if you left it at the Fung there.
No, I think that's a great point of just doing the check-ins. That's super smart. I wanted to ask that question because I didn't want people to think you talked to 11 people and you acquired 10 agencies. I think it's important for people to know you talked to 50 and acquired 10 or 60 or whatever the number is. And then outside of that, I wanted to ask you, the 10 that you purchased, just roughly, were they all in your state specifically? Were they nationwide?
Yeah, they're all in my, within an
Local
hour,
area.
2 hours. Yeah, they're all in my local area. I just, like I said, I've always just prospect locally. Yeah, I just like to stay in my backyard.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And then was there anything strategically as far as like being a part of a network or a cluster or anything that, there was a common thing across the 10? Yeah. That you were like, hey, I hope they're a part of this.
Yeah, I mean, there are some networks that had some success, but I think, networks are a great way to meet potential prospects, on both sides. Everybody always talks about exit fees and they're going to take a little cut of my profit sharing. At the end of the day, the relationships that you're going to get in networks, you really can't replace. Yeah, you might give up a teeny bit of profit sharing, but you might meet 2 or 3 guys 3 years from now that decide that, I'm going to partner with you, or I'm going to sell to you because I met you through my aggregator, and, your aggregator or your network wants to keep that premium in house. So they might even recommend you. So that's why I always tell people, just think long-term with your decisions. Yeah, you might suffer a year or two, maybe on some profit sharing, or you might have gave up a little bit commission, but, play the long game. It's not about, quarter to quarter or year to year. It's like, what do you want to accomplish in 5 to 10? And do you think being a part of an aggregator or network is going to get you there? And in my opinion, 9 times out of 10, it does, because they're with people that want to grow. They're a lot of the same carriers, which is much easier whenever you do an acquisition. If you already have the carrier appointments, you're enhancing relationships. You might be enhancing profit sharing. So yeah, I think networks are a huge benefit in our industry.
When did you decide acquisitions was the way you wanted to go, and why?
It's a great question. I just think just looking around and seeing how a lot of the agencies around you were growing, and seeing, taking a step back and saying, if I want to grow at the rate I want to grow at, the only rate I really want to do it would be through acquisitions. That was the way I went. Now, some people are growing, huge ways of organic growth. You got to have both levers going. But for me, I definitely leaned in a little more on acquisitions.
Okay. Why do you think you need both? Is it because just I guess it would be the talent that you can acquire too from the acquisitions?
You have to have both going, because that's another thing that people don't understand. If you don't have if you're not growing organically, then and you're buying premium and you're incorporating them into your organization, the amount of business that you have to write every year just to break even increases, because you're going to have natural attrition on your book. So you have to, you got to keep writing new business. So if you don't have a good sales organization going alongside it, you're going to be buying policies that are going to be going out the back door, or you're not going to be writing enough new business to grow.
That's a great point. So if you're writing, let's say I'm not acquiring any agencies and I'm writing, you have retention, let's say you're $1 million in revenue and you're losing 8% a year of the policies you have, you'd have to write X amount to make up just for that retention loss.
Yeah, not counting
So
just,
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and just you're going to lose a certain amount of business just because of the change of ownership too. So you got to have a lot of, fuel to the fire on the inorganic side as well.
That makes sense. Yeah, some more leverage.
You both have teed me up perfectly. If I may take it for a second.
There you go.
Transition. I want you to talk to us about the good, the bad, the ugly, everything as far as the transition time. Okay, we went through all our steps. We got the deal. Sean is purchasing T5. He's happy. I'm happy. Obviously, it's going to be a little different if he blows in and comes in and changes the logo the next day to Sound Harbor, and we're now Sound Harbor Insurance Upstate, and Steven's gone, and all the people that had the relationship were with me, and I'm on a boat somewhere in the Caribbean, and they can't get in touch with me, all these things. Talk about, in your experience, 6 and 2 years, like, what do those transitions look like that helped with the retention, that helped with that scare factor of the clients going somewhere else because now Steven's gone?
Yeah. For me, I partnered with a large firm called the Levitt Group, and they've been completely instrumental in that. We have a whole data integration team. We have a whole due diligence team. We have a whole team that sets us up on an agency management system that converts it. So without them, I might have been able to do 1, 2, if that. So it's just having the resources to grow, because the last thing you want to do is purchase a book of business and you don't have the resources post close to incorporate them into your policies. You don't have, just converting to a management system can take, a month or two, just pulling over the data,
can't imagine.
Just contacting, carriers and letting them know of an agency change. That can take a while, and following up to make sure they got your paperwork, the legal paperwork that needs filed for the DBA names. There's just a ton that goes into it. That's why people think just, once you have, the deal signed, that's really just when the fun gets started, because especially if you're a young scratch agent and you've probably, borrowed a decent amount of money, or, you've signed off on some, you're leveraged a little bit. The last thing that you can afford to do is not be organized post close and not get the data, not get the policies, not be able to reach out to the customers in time to let them know of an agency change, changing over phone systems, payroll, everything, taxes. It's a game. So not, making sure, like I said, are you ready to buy? Everyone says they are until, push comes to shove.
But let me change my question, because you just went over a ton of stuff that I wasn't going to bring up. My question was more externally to the clients. Like, do you, if you're buying Bob's insurance agency and Bob's retiring, are you blowing in there and it's now Dott Insurance Group? Are you doing Bob's insurance agency a partner of Dott's? How are you doing that? And the messaging that you've had success with to the clients that are at that book of business?
I always let the customers know. I think you owe it to the customers, because a lot of them have known 30, 40 years of friendly faces in the office or an agency owner. So I just think it's fair to let them know that their life's changing a little bit in their insurance world. Now, some people might say, that might scare them to call and find other insurance. Well, if you do your messaging right, you get out ahead of it, I promise you it won't be that big of a deal. But the last thing I like to do is kind of deceive customers and just say, oh, well, who's this new name on it? It's not a good way to start a relationship.
So how is that messaging successful? Walk us through that.
I usually just keep their name and file it as a DBA name, because the customers know that name. A lot of times that name means a lot to the agency owner. It's in the community. It's a respected name. Their customers know it, and so I usually just keep the name and just use it as a DBA name underneath.
And are you sending a letter out to that entire book of business written with that together with buyer and seller? Or?
Yeah, letter and also an email, both, because some people don't open mail, some people don't open email, and both communications are helpful.
Yeah. One last point too, I want to touch on. I know we're coming up on time, but can we dive a little deeper into funding? Because I think that can be the big rock for some of these things, and some even scratch agents that have opportunities think, I wouldn't be able to do this because of that. And there's a million ways, right? The seller can hold the paper, you can fund through a bank, you can, give them your left shoe and keep your right shoe. Who the hell knows? There's so many different ways to do the deal. Can you just talk about some experiences you've had with that and what would be good for people to prepare in regards to that?
Yeah, I would say I would say if this, once again, talking to the seller, having a communication. Do you want to be paid out as a lump sum? Most of the time, yes. Or do you want to be paid out over time? There's a couple of different ways to structure it, but I would also definitely meet a good local regional bank that you can build a relationship with. Because at the end of the day, they're probably going to have to take a chance on you a little bit, because this might be your first, major business loan. So developing a relationship with a good local lender is huge. There's also, national banks out there that just deal with insurance. It's another really good route to go, and just see who you get the best terms from. That's what I would recommend is kind of doing both, try and develop a relationship at the local level, but also, develop a national relationship too with a national lender as well. Cause it's always good to have both options, especially when you're new, because it might take one person to take a chance on you, to approve it, and don't put all your eggs in one basket, and don't just assume that, you're just going to get a loan, because it can be challenging.
Well, it's the same thing with networking with the prospects of selling. You're networking with institutions, banks, people that deal with just insurance agencies, your local credit union, whatever it is, of just saying, hey, I'm looking at doing this. I want this to be a goal of mine. Like, what does it look like? And to your point, like having those conversations and just extra being prepared. Because if there's one thing over the last 4 that I've had in front of me that I've tried to work on, is when it comes, you have to act then. There's no like, let me figure this out,
Yeah, that's why I would 100% recommend, like, if you are in your mind or in your heart, you want to start thinking about growing by acquisitions, is start now, meet with local lenders, and also, the national lenders, and just send them over your financials and tell them your story. That way they might be honest with you and say, I love what I see, and, it looks like we could do something. Or they might just tell you, your expenses might be a little high. You're not ready yet, but this is how you can get there. So I think just being coachable and learning through the process of knowing that, like, when the deal is ready, I'm ready, rather than, oh crap, the deal is here, am I ready? There's just a big difference there.
Love it.
Amazing. All right, gents, we should wrap this puppy up. John, you got anything else that I just want to go back to this?
No, I got notes on notes.
What's your motivation and what's your goal? That's so powerful. What's your motivation? What's your goal? So good.
Yeah, I mean, what you guys are doing too out there. I mean, I see your brands on social media, and the image that you guys portray out there also can lead to opportunities. And exactly how yours came up, Steve, is she sees your systems you're doing, your brand, and they want to be a part of that. And to know that every day that if you're trying to do better, and you're representing your agency well in the marketplace, you're respecting your carrier reps, you're respecting, the different lenders throughout, the good karma is going to come around.
Mm-hmm. Just do your homework and get it planned. Josh, thank you for being here. Just truly appreciate your friendship and the support of the show and everything you've done. I'll see you boys in Dallas next week, actually. Looking forward to that for a little mastermind meetup. Everybody, thanks for being here. That's another episode of the Scratch Agency Podcast. Thanks for joining us. Do us a favor, like the show, share the show, and subscribe. Make sure to check out the Telegram, scratchagencypodcast.com. Click join the community. Free community to join. Big group chat, bunch of Scratch Agency owners. Everybody's in there, from big, small, medium, just started, been in it for 20 years, you name it. Huge value in that group. Most importantly, remember to dig down deep, believe in yourself, and own your own future. We'll see you next week. Take care.